and welcome to the final part of the story of the sky. In the previous videos, we saw the story of the relationship between man and sky and how it helped civilizations to know the direction using various markers in the sky. In this video, we look at how the sky helped us to find the time. You saw how the zodiac was created in the sky and how the various stars and planets formed the dial. Let us look at this in more detail today.
So now we have a plane of sky which we call the zodiac, and we have identified certain stars and planets, all of which for a specific reason fall in the same plane, and also these move with different speeds. Consider the clocks that we use today. In this, the hands move at different speeds. The second hand moves the fastest and completes one revolution in 60 seconds. The minute hand takes 60 minutes and the hour hand takes 12 hours. We can have one more hand to denote day and night, but we don't need the same because we have calendars today to know the passage of a day. We have divided the clock's phase into 12 equal parts. Now when the hour hand is at 6 and the minute hand at 15, we call that configuration as 6:15. Now the ancient astronomers who didn't have clocks used configurations that we mentioned earlier to their advantage. The zodiac became the dial phase, and they divided the phase into 12 equal parts just like the clock. The previously identified patterns on stars became the numbers in the dials. We call them as Rashis in India. In English, they are called star signs. Now we have set the hands. The fastest hand is the moon. It rotates the clock phase once in 27.3 days. Sun rotates once in a year. Mercury and Venus too takes the same time as the Sun. Mars takes 1.5 years, Jupiter takes 12 years, and Saturn takes 29.5 years.
Now let's say a child is born. We have the clock, and we now need to find out which hands stay in which numbers on the dial. So we note the positions of the planets in the zodiac and mark their positions relative to the Rashis or patterns in the zodiac. Now let's assume that this child is a prince and at some point he has to be crowned as a king. How do we find out his age? Or if the child is a commoner, at some point he may want to get married. How do we find out his age then? So now let us refer to the chart. If you look at the chart on the left, you can see the positions of the various planets on the zodiac. Now, after a long time, they have moved to various other positions as shown on the right. Now here comes the science. We know the speeds at which these planets move. Let us take a look at the slowpoke, Saturn first. It has moved from Taurus to Aries. Now if you divide the revolution period of Saturn by 12 Rashis or star signs, it is 29.5 divided by 12, 2.5 years approximately. So Saturn stays in a Rashi or star sign for 2.5 years approximately. So if you compare the charts on the left and the right, Saturn has traveled through 11 Rashis. So we can calculate that 2.5 times 11, 27.5 years have passed since the chart was first made. Now this is an approximate calculation which you are making to make you understand things better. For a more accurate measurement of the position of the planets within each star signs, they could look at the angular positions within the star signs and come up with a more precise measurement. Using this technique and using the various other planets and their differences in movement within the zodiac, people in those days could calculate time precise to up to 30 minutes. So to find out the age of a king, the sky helped them to zero in on not just the year or the month, but to be accurate to within hours. This circular chart was represented in a square form in the south of India, whereas in the north they followed the circular pattern. Europeans too followed the circular pattern.
When we see these astro charts or horoscopes as they are called these days, we get a magical feeling. That's because we don't know what these represents. They just represent the positions of the planet as we described above. If you take the list of scientific achievements in the olden times and rank them, these astral charts would be the most scientific and most prolific of among all of them. To find out within hours the passage of age without having clocks and calendars has to be surely put right up there at the top, right? It will help us even today, but we don't need those today. We have other tools for that. We consider this as magic or superstition because we don't know what this is used for. Let's look at an example. Let's say two people are playing chess in a room. In the middle of the game, they left the board as it is and went to say, let's have a drink or a tea. Now come into the room and you have no clue about chess. If you saw the half-played chessboard and black and white pieces on a black and white board and you had no clue about chess, you may assume that there is some black magic going on. Only if you knew a little bit about chess, you would understand what is really going on. Same is the case with horoscopes or astral charts. If you don't know why it was created and how it was created, you would be just clueless and you would see it with magical eyes.
There is no magic in the chart. It is just a timestamp. It represents a specific time at a specific place. There are no ways to know if this belongs to a male or a female, whether the person is alive or dead, unless it is specified. Also, if you don't know where was this written, there is no use with it. This is because a horoscope of a person born now in India would be different to a person who is born at the same time, let's say in America, because the times are different and the sky is different, so the positions of the planet would also be different. So horoscopes have so much importance, but also only that much important in the life of humans. If you understand this critical aspect, we can continue. All Indian calendars are based on another movement, the movement of the sun within the zodiac, be it the Malayalam months such as Chingam, Kanni, Tulam, etc., and the Hindi calendars, which starts with Chaitra, Vaishakha, Jaishta, etc., are all based on the movement of the sun. The sun takes 1 year to move through the zodiac. So the sun remains in one sun sign for 1 month. That is the month as per Indian calendars. So if someone knows the constellation and looks up today, you would see the sun near Chingam for Malayalis, or Singa or Leo in Hindu and European calendars. And if you want to know the passage of time, you just have to stand facing the east and keep looking at the horizon every 2 hours, and you will see each of these constellations rising from the east. Why 2 hours? Because there are 24 hours in a day and 12 constellations, so every 2 hours you would see one constellation rising from the east. We will go deeper into this in a later video, as we don't want to confuse you too much information. Just understand that by using the information that the sky gives you, you can know the month and time by just looking at the sky.
Just as we calculated months using the sun, some civilization used the moon to do the same thing. The waxing and waning of the moon is also a phase which repeats every month. It's just that it takes around 27.3 days to complete its revolution. So the path of the moon has to be divided by 27 instead of 12. Each division corresponds to what we call as a birth star. We call it nakshatras. This is quite popular in Hindu calendars. So all the days on a Hindu calendar like Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, etc. are based on which star the moon is next to in the zodiac. So when a child is born, if you make a note of the star that the moon was standing next to, you would make it his birth star. Now the moon would revolve and would reach the same star after 27 days. And in those days, to make a note of it, people used to tie a long string around the child's waist on the 28th day. And they will let the longer end fall down. When the moon makes yet another revolution, you would add a knot to the hanging part. In the Hinduism, the ceremony is traditionally known as Namkaran or naming ceremony. This ceremony is conducted in an elaborate form on the 10th or 12th day after the birth. In Kerala, this is conducted on the 28th day and is called Nulukettu. It made sense in those days why the thread was tied, as you could find the age of the child in those days by counting these knots, each knot representing 28 days or 1 month as per the calendar. However, this practice is still followed today and celebrated with aplomb without realizing the reason for its beginning. So the days of the months is calculated on the basis of the moon's revolution, and the months are calculated on the basis of the sun's revolution. So if you combine both the revolutions of the sun and the moon, you can see that the sun stays for 2¼ days in one zodiac. So astrologers in Kerala combined these and made it a Rashi Kur. Each Rashi considered of 2 nakshatras and a quarter of the next nakshatra.
Naturawella is an ancient system which prevailed in Kerala for calculation of specific periods for cultivation. They divided the year into 27 parts of the moon and called it a Naturawella. We now know that there are 27 nakshatras as per the moon. If you calculate how long the sun stays near these nakshatras determined the Naturawella. Each Naturawella was of 13.5 days long, and each of them corresponded to the various seasons such as summer and monsoons. Currently the sun is in Leo, so currently the Naturawella that would be prevalent would be Puram and Makam. And this is the season of harvesting in Kerala. So in olden times, people who were born in this time of the year had sufficient food to eat. Hence, people born in this Naturawella were considered special, and that is why there are sayings like Puram Piranda Purushan or Magam Piranda Manga. Puyam is in the peak of monsoon, which means that people did not have much to eat and hence had to survive with very little rice, which is the staple food of Kerala, and had to resort to eating tubers and other foods. This was a period of forced fasting due to a lack of food. However, this is still practiced by many people during the month of Karkidagam, which during the peak rainy seasons of July and August. Although today it wears a lot of fanciful pseudoscientific attire like that these food have medicinal properties, etc. The real story behind it is connected with this Naturawella. Today we are no longer facing the food crisis on particular months as we get food all around the year. But some people still follow this out of tradition. So if you see, there are some justifications to the invention of some of the superstitions that we follow. However, it ends with the creation. There is no justification for it being practiced even now. Why did we mention all this? It is because if you know how all these superstitions came about, we can understand why all of these are baseless in today's times.
But today we look at the sky in a different light. Although it is the same sky we are looking at, the story of the sky has changed and evolved over time. Today, if we have to look at the sky, it is more of a hobby than a need. Sun, moon, etc. are no longer gods, but at one point of time they were. Consider these objects, which can be obscured using our thumbnails, had the power to spread light across the entire earth. So it was natural for people in those times to consider them as gods. But even when they were identified as planets, they definitely had this godly aura. However, today, forget them being gods. We don't even count them among planets. At present, the sun travels through 13 constellations. Now we also know that the sun actually goes into another constellation called the Ophiuchus. This wasn't known to our forefathers. We have 2 more planets in this list, Neptune and Uranus. Now why didn't our forefathers know about this? It is simply because to spot these faraway planets you needed telescopes. We don't look at the sky to know the time or direction now. We have better tools like GPS for that matter. We don't depend on the sky for agriculture. And especially for people in places like Kerala, we don't depend on agriculture also. We depend instead on others who depend on agriculture. Today, we have weather forecasting and calendars to know when it would rain and when we should need to sow the seeds. Additionally, we have a lot of artificial satellites that we have sent into the sky. Their characters have been placed on the stage by the audience. Even though we are seeing the same stage and the same characters, the story that we see on that stage is different. Today, we don't see the religious based stories that our forefathers saw in the sky. But we see today is science fiction. These stories will continue to change, but the sky will continue to remain there.
So with this, we come to the climax section of the story of the sky. When we decided to take up this topic, our problem was not what we would tell through this video, but what we would omit. The topics of the sky is just as wide and endless as the sky. We will be back later with an extended follow-up of this story. The reason we told this story of the sky is to make you understand the importance that the sky had in the improvement of humans as a species, and also how much the sky influenced human species and its deep relationship with our species. Today, we don't have a need to look at the sky, but we urge you to take a look at the sky tonight after watching this video with a different attitude at this wonderful stage, which has made us what we are today. So we end the story of the sky after wishing a clear blue sky to each one of you. If you like this 3 parts video, please tell us in the comment section. If you still haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so now so that we can bring more interesting and varied topics to you. Thank you for your patient listening.